Hello, YouTube. I'm just waiting for Instagram to turn up. Hello. It's one of my surprise lives. I just like to pop up when I feel like it sometimes. I do have my regularly scheduled lives on Thursday night at 5 p.m. That's Vancouver time here on Instagram. So, but anyway, this is just one of my pop-ups. So anyway, while we're waiting, I'd love to know where you're from and how old your kids are. So if you want to answer, you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but I'm always fascinated. And I learn a lot about the world, like different places. So many countries I'd never even heard of before turn up. Okay. Oh, okay. Just a sec. Toy rotation in the banking system. Okay. Toy rotation, banking. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write down, I might go into one of those here, and then I'll do videos. I haven't done my videos yet today, so I'll do those and I'll post those. They'll probably come out in a day or two on Instagram. I post first on TikTok, and then they get turned. I don't know how it all works. I'm actually quite new on Instagram, so I'm just learning about Instagram. So, but anyway, and I will get into that now here also. I will touch on it. Anyway, sorry, I've got a sore throat tonight. Anyway, I'll just get going now. We've got enough people here. So anyway, if you look in the link above, that in the link in my bio, you'll see that I've got my free behavior board, one of my I've got 4 mini toddler courses. I've got my big course, my boot camp course for 3 to 12-year-olds, teaches you how to be a leader. And then in 5 weeks, and then the next level up is coaching one-on-one with me. Everything I have to offer in my business is in the link above. So you can just go there if you want to know more. So someone here asked me to talk about the toy rotation system and the banking system. So I'm just going to explain those briefly. I've done a lot of videos on those 2 subjects. The toy rotation system is based on the idea that when children are overstimulated, they can't focus. Okay. Also, I like a really clean house. So I had very few toys out for my kids at any given time. 90% of their toys, they didn't have a lot of toys anyway. I kind of got rid of stuff that I knew they'd never use. So I'm kind of more of a minimalist that way. But anyway, what I did was I put most of their toys away in boxes, and they only had like 5 or 6 toys out at any given time. And they were never bored because of that, because they always had something to look at, something that was different. You put something away for a few weeks or even a month, you pull it back out, they've seen it before, but they're going to treat it like it's a brand new toy. It's quite incredible. And I'm very picky about what I bring out, like what I keep too. It's not stuff like, remember those little Furbies and stuff like that, that there was no creativity, no participation from the kid. I like stuff that they had to participate in and build. So I like blocks and all that kind of stuff that actually kept them doing something, right? Anyway, so that was my toy rotation system. People always say, well, how often did you rotate? Just sort of as soon as they started looking a little bit bored. And I never put away plushies, like anything that they love cuddling, anything that was comforting. So I never put away anything like that. I never put away the big stuff, like big sets of blocks and stuff like that. But those were activity things. Like they couldn't just throw blocks all over the house. They had to play. Sort of, we would have like, this is blocks time. So this afternoon we're going to do Play-Doh. They couldn't have Play-Doh and blocks and racetrack sets and Lego, all that stuff out at any given time. They sort of had one big thing out at any given time. And I sort of ran a bit like a classroom. That's why my kids really eased into school, because they were used to systems and being organized and all that stuff. And they understood you got to clean up one thing before you can go on to the next. So that's the toy rotation system. I didn't rotate very often with them, maybe once every couple of months. Actually, I was really lucky. Where we lived in Australia, they had the toy library, and it was attached to the regular book library. And you'd go there, and it was all free, and you could just take out, I think it was for 3 weeks you'd get this thing. And it was always these big giant things that you didn't really want permanently anyway. Like you could get tons of stuff, these big slides that you'd put outside. Like if, I didn't have a big van, but people who had big vans were really lucky they could get this stuff in their vans. But yeah, it was like those little mini slides and everything, and doll houses, and it was fantastic. So they had tons of stuff that they got from that toy library. I don't know, check it out. Look at your library. Check out churches, daycare centers. Lots of places will actually even rent stuff out for a small fee, and usually that goes to charity. So look into that. Anyway, and then the banking system. You asked about that also. The banking system, I call it Mom's Bank. And what I did with my kids was I had a book, and I started them at 3 years old. I think that I gave them, I can't remember. This is like they're in their 30s now, right? So I think I gave them half their age per week. So if they were 3 years old, they got $1.50 per week. It's not about the money, it's about the whole system. Anyway, I had 2 kids. I started one in the front and one in the back. And every single Saturday morning, I'd say, okay, come on, we're going to do mom's banking. So they'd come running and I'd say, okay, now here's the date, here's the description, and it was debit, credit, balance. So from the age of about 3, they started understanding saving money. I never gave them cash. If they got cash as a gift or something, it went right to me and I wrote it down in here. So this was a really good way for me to teach them how to manage and respect and spend money responsibly. Plus, it was always a conversation around money. As they got, and they could never just buy candy or anything. I was always in control of the healthy stuff, right? So it's not like they had all this money and they could just say, I want to do a withdrawal and go buy a whole bunch of chocolate bars. It just wasn't like that. So they had to come to me and say, you know, there's a brand new PlayStation game out. I'd like to buy it. And I'd say, well, that's kind of a big item just to spend your allowance on. I'd rather you wait till Christmas or something. But sometimes as they got older, they'd say, well, yeah, I really would like to get that. I've got all this money in the bank. And then we'd discuss it. But then what I would do is I'd say, okay, so now your balance is going to go down. It's going to take you this many more months to get where you were. Also, I was giving them 10% interest on every $100. So if they saved $200, they got $20 interest. But they only got that interest on the same amount once. So they couldn't take $10 out, then add $10 and keep getting $20 interest on top of it. You see what I mean? Also, when they got to $1,000, I gave them $100 interest. And then it went up to 1,100 right away. It was really weird. Anyway, it's just the way I did it. So, but then it would go back to 10% on every $100. So when they reached $1,200, they only got $20 interest. Anyway, it was a really great way right through the teen years to just discuss money with them. And I cashed them out when they were 15, and I made them go out and get part-time jobs because I thought that was really important. And then I cashed them out because when I'm not going to pay interest on what they're making outside of the home kind of thing. So I took them to a regular bank. That was a real slap in the face because they weren't getting the interest that mom was paying. But anyway, it's a really good way to connect with your kids again. You discuss money, you teach them how to respect money and save. So that's the banking system. Okay, Toronto, Ontario, 2 years old. Welcome, Canadian, eh? Shout out from Tokyo, 7, 5, and 3. We don't all say A. Yeah, okay, I say A. But I'm sure we all say A. London, on 1.5, 3, and 6. Welcome. Florida, my baby girl's 2.5. Excellent. Iowa. Oh, Iowa, Ohio, and what's the Idaho? Those 3, they always get mixed up between those 3. I have no idea where they are in relation to each other. 3-year-old grandson, welcome. Michigan, 5-year-old twin boys, welcome. Indian just moved to Montreal, 3 months and 5 days, already panicking. 3 months and 5 days, already panicking. Yeah, you're in the easy time. Wait till they're up on their feet and running around. That's my least favorite age, is the toddler age. They're cute as a button, but they're all feet, no brains. I loved having them at home because I child-proofed my whole house, so it was easy. But I hated taking them out because you can't enjoy yourself. All you're doing is watching them the whole time. So yeah, it wasn't relaxing going out. Boys 3 and 6, New Jersey, 15 months old. Excellent. New Zealand, 12 and 7 years old. Boys always fighting. Yeah, okay. If you want to ask a specific question, go ahead, but I'd need to know, is it physical fighting or just sibling rivalry or competitiveness? There's all different types of fighting. Florida, USA, 4-year-old. Las Vegas, 2.5-year-old, 4 months old. Oh, you're right in the thick of it. That's my most challenging. It's when I feel the most useless when I'm coaching people, is when they hire me and they've got a toddler and a new baby. Because there's only so much I can throw at this new mom. She's busy. She's probably breastfeeding. She's stuck sitting there and the 4-year-old's running around or whatever, the 2-year-old's running around. It's difficult. So, I mean, I obviously have some advice, but a lot of it's frustrating for me because I have to be very conscious of how worn out she is. Right? From Florida, I have a 3-year-old, 18-month-old newborn. Wow, you're busy. 3-year-old, Annapolis, I don't know what MD stands for. Annapolis, MD. 5-year-old son in pre-K. Okay, excellent. Mostly little kids here. I don't see a lot of teenage parents here. Okay, 5-year-old twins do not listen. Okay, if they're 5 years old and they're not listening to you, that's just a lack of leadership. So you might want to check out my boot camp course that teaches you how to be a leader in 5 weeks. And it just sets you up as a leader. That's all it is. You lead, they will follow. All their behavior till they're about 12 years old is all a direct result of your parenting. From 3 to 12. That's why that boot camp goes from 3 to 12. That's when you're in that's when you're in the height of your leadership. Before that, it's kind of not really working. Toddlers aren't really going to follow a leader yet. And then teenagers, it starts to shift and change. I was just going to read the 4 stages of parenting You go, this is not about the kids, this is about you. There's 4 very distinct stages of parenting. In my book, I just made this up for myself. It's just the way I view it. So the first stage is you've got a baby, 0 to 15 months old. It's all just loving, nurturing, meeting all their needs, all that kind of stuff. Then the toddler, 16 to 35 months. That's when you start to discipline, but they're not about words. They're about consistent corrective actions because they learn through repetition. They're not going to learn the first time. They might learn the 100th time. It takes time, right? Then you go into the child phase. That's the leadership I was just talking about. That's 3 to 12 years old. It's a very vast difference in ages and maturity levels and all that, but your parenting is very similar. You're really the leader, and they need that. They need, crave, and want your leadership. And then you go into the teen phase. This is for they're my favorite age, by the way, teenagers, because I knew how to parent a teenager. I learned a little bit along the way, but getting up in the middle of the night to pick a kid up at a party, that was awful because I also had a younger one that I had to wake up. I was a single mom. That was one of the hardest part of parenting, was getting up at 2 in the morning to pick up my son who was at a friend's house, and I had to wake up his younger sister, like just to bring her along. That was awful. But anyway, teenagers, if you haven't lived with a teenager, you can't really talk about parenting teenagers because they are different, right? You have to sort of shift and change your parenting. That's when you want to shift the leadership over to them more. But they're still going to come to you with the big stuff, but you have to allow them to make mistakes. You don't sweat the big stuff with teenagers. I'm going to read the 3 top tips for parenting teenagers. Even if you don't have teenagers now, you will one day. So keep this in mind. This is my 3 top tips for parenting teenagers. Number 1 is you listen to understand and show empathy. You don't listen to gather information to lecture with. They will shut you out and they won't tell you anything. If they want your advice, they'll ask for it. By the way, they already know it anyway. Number 2 is you negotiate pretty much everything. Hey, I want you to put your dirty clothes in the hamper from now on. What do you want from me? Stuff like that. You show them respect. You show respect to get it. You do that with little ones too, but really in high gear with teenagers. And then number 3, I just mentioned that you don't sweat the small stuff. Save your energy for the big stuff. If you micromanage and sweat the small stuff, you'll have nothing left for the big stuff, and they won't listen to you. Well, I don't understand this. What strategies can I give my son's pre-K teachers to implement? Oh, I don't tell teachers what to do. That's none of my business. I teach parenting, so there's no way. And are you a parent? Can I give playtime? So are you in charge of the school? Are you a principal? Are you just a parent trying to tell teachers how to teach? Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that. I stay in my lane. Like what I mean is I would never tell a teacher how to teach. Would not do it. I spent a lot of time in classrooms helping support the teacher, and I have the utmost respect for teachers. My 3-year-old won't poop on the potty. The few times she has, she lives it and feels pride, but won't do it regularly. Lives it and feels pride. Don't we all? Woohoo! Anyway, okay. I don't know. There's a couple of reasons for that. They're very graphic. I don't know if I want to talk about it on here. You're all parents, right? Anyway, there's 2 reasons why a lot of kids don't like pooping on the toilet. One of them is hang phobia. They don't like the feeling of the poop hanging there. It feels better mashed up in a diaper. What I suggest you do for that is, like, can you imagine it sort of pulling when it's hanging there? They just don't like that feeling. It kind of feels, I don't know. You can understand that. So I suggest you get one of those little potties and put a bunch of paper towels or Kleenex or toilet paper in the bottom so it doesn't hang. It sort of hits the bottom kind of quickly and it doesn't hang. That's one reason they often don't like pooping in the toilet. The other one is plopping. They might get splashback. So the way you prevent that is you put some toilet paper in the toilet first. I know we're using a lot of paper here, but it's just temporary while they're training. Those are 2 reasons why they often won't. Also, if it's just a stubbornness, you might want to check out my potty party, toddler potty, what did I call it? Potty party course. What did I call it? I forget. I always forget the name of my courses. I've got 2 courses. I always forget the name of them. This was my very first course, was the potty training one. Just a sec. Because I changed the name a while ago, so I forget what it's called. Oh, toddler potty party. It's for 1 to 3-year-olds, but kind of goes in how you do the reward system. So every time they poop, they get maybe 3 treats, like little tiny mini chocolate chips or something. You might want to check that out. Okay, let me see here. Oh, thanks so much for all your messages. I do my best to get to them. I spent 3 hours today answering messages. because I hadn't answered them in a few days. So I do my best to answer them. At this point, I pretty much get through them all. Just so you know, I'm doing my best here to answer your messages. I'm new on Instagram, by the way. I'm started out on TikTok. That's my bigger platform, and yeah, I'm just learning. Okay, how do you start with the toy rotation with 2 boys that are 6 and 8? Buy them something new to start it off. Hey, look, I got you a new present. The way you're going to get it is this. Pack up all your toys, then pick out 5 that you want, and then you'll get this. So that's how it's an incentive. It's kind of unfair just to throw a whole bunch of stuff away, up in a cupboard for a while. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's kind of unfair. When they're older, when they're little, just do it while they're having a nap. But yeah, when they're 6 and 8, that's how I would do it. Yeah. 3-year-old potty training regression, how to navigate seems to be reinforced when we are sad, she is wet. Seems to be reinforced when we are sad, she is wet. I don't understand that sentence. And by the way, regression is not uncommon. I don't always know the reasons for it. I could figure it out if I was talking to you, but yeah. I don't understand. This seems to be reinforced when we are sad. She is wet. By the way, if they are wet, and I might have this wrong, but it's a good point anyway. You never, ever, ever show any emotion or anger or anything around them having accidents. It's a bodily function. If there's any shame involved in that, I just think it's kind of mean. Like, I would never make a kid clean up after themselves. I would do it. So you'll see, if you check out my potty party, if you've bought that already, you'll see that. If you were to attach any shame or embarrassment or humiliation or anger or any emotion to having an accident, like for example, when I was training my kids, and I trained my son in 1 day, my daughter in 2 days, and my daughter was reading, she's 28 now, she was reading this course one day and she goes, "Oh, you mean it was a real party?" And I said, "Oh yeah, party hats and everything." So it is a real party. It was like all positive. But yeah, you'll notice that I say you never, ever, ever, when they would have an accident on the floor, I'd go, "Oh, well, mommy pees on the floor sometimes too. No big deal." No negativity around that stuff. Here for the potty training advice. Yeah, it's a whole process, so I can't go into it specifically. I do have a mini course on that. But yeah, the most important thing I can tell you is wait till they're ready. About 2.5 is a good age. And also no shame around it. None. But treat it like a party. No pull-ups, no night diapers. None. I didn't do any of that. My kids were completely trained over a weekend. They were 2.5. They were both ready for it. And when I said something, they knew it was going to happen too. I'm very consistent. So, I just said, this is what's going to happen. And I just sort of did all the work involved in doing it. Plus, you take a little porta potty around everywhere you go. I never went anywhere without that thing. I don't mean just the hook, the one that you stick on top of a toilet. I mean the little one. You might have to pull over on the side of the road. Remember, my kids didn't have pull-ups on. So I made sure they didn't have a lot to drink before we went out. And if they did, they went pee at least once or twice before we went out. I was always prepping for all that. So I had to be organized. Thoughts on the Montessori system? I don't have any thoughts on that. That's like asking me about religion or anything else. That's a personal thing. So, I don't have any thoughts on that. The only thing that I will say is it is an alternative one. It's like Steiner. Also, I think there's 3 of them that are big alternative schools. And the only problem I've seen with that is that they're usually mainstreamed in regular schools by high school. They often struggle if they haven't been, because they're not mainstream before that. So in the high school years, they can often go a little bit crazy because they're just not used to seeing all that. They're not as protected in the regular system. So yeah, that's the only thing. But I honestly don't have an opinion on it one way or the other. I didn't do it. It wouldn't have suited me and my lifestyle with my kids. But I don't have an opinion on it. Just, yeah, it's to each his own. It's like when people ask me about co-sleeping, breastfeeding, religion, all this stuff. I don't have it. It's personal. 2-year-old potty trained, but not at night. Does that happen naturally? Do we need? Okay, what I did with my kids is I made sure before they went, I didn't use any night diapers or anything. I made sure before they went to bed that there was no drinks or anything 90 minutes before they went to bed. Then if they were inclined, because they were waking up dry anyway, or pardon me, they weren't necessarily waking up dry, but if they laid in bed for a while, if I could hear them moving around, then they might pee. But if I caught them, as soon as I heard them start to wake up, I'd race them into the toilet and they'd go pee. And sometimes they'd go back to bed and go to sleep again. So I was very on top of it. I was very, making sure. And if they did have a wet diaper throughout the night, then what I suggest you do is you do a sleeping pee. So you get them up around midnight and then just hang them over the toilet or whatever. You can both be half asleep and they'll pee them. Put their hands in warm water so that it'll make them pee quicker. It's not a perfection thing. Like it might not work the first time, like it might not work perfectly. It might take a week. But the idea is that if they're 2.5, they're ready. You're already kind of a leader. So they know that when you say something, you mean it. It's a good way to get leadership too, though, and bond with your little kids because it's a whole party, right? Okay. Arizona foster parents, 6 years old and 1 year old. Thanks so much for doing that. I know there's a lot of kids out there who need that. I remember the only time I ever had anything to do with going into foster homes was when I was working at this place, and it was a government agency, and there was a new baby born, and it was taken away from the mom, and we had to go drop it off at foster parents. Now, this was back in I'm old. This was back in the 70s. We didn't have car seats or anything for babies, and I was sitting in the front seat while the social worker was driving, and I was holding a newborn baby in the front seat of this car. Isn't that crazy? Would have been in the 70s. I started driving in 1976. Well, 1975, I got my learners. And I'm telling you this kind of I guess it's not that interesting. But anyway, 1976, I think seatbelts came in that year here in Vancouver, Canada. And I was already wearing my seatbelt all the time anyway, but it was a safety net. Maryland. Oh, Maryland is MD. Oh, okay. Thanks for that. When do you start a toy rotation system? Right away. I did that when my kids were babies. There's no way I had everything out. It's overwhelming, it's overstimulating, and they don't tend to focus on anything. The more you have out there for kids to look at, the more likely they are to be bored. It's just the truth. You think about the way school is run or daycare is run. Okay, we're going to pack this up and then we'll do that. They don't throw everything in the middle of the room and say, have at it. They have times for things, and they know that children do not focus if they have everything out at once. It's just not that. I don't like playrooms. I've known people who've built houses and they've done these giant playrooms. They're not even anywhere near the family room or the kitchen. Like they don't even want their kids anywhere near them. I wanted my kids right near me, and I wanted I wanted everything around me all the time. I didn't want a toy room. Besides, that just says to me clutter. Like you go in there and then they got 5 million things. It's always a mess. It's a disaster. I love cleaning, and I can't watch those cleaning YouTube videos when they have a toy room. I can't even watch it. It's such chaos. It drives me insane. A lot of my clients have toy rooms. They hear it. I say it like it is. But they usually get rid of a whole bunch of stuff after working with me. Okay, we're having a trouble thinking about consequences for our behavior board for lying. Well, I need to know the age. How old? 3, 13? I need the age. Atlanta, 10, 5, 4, and 4 months. Wow, you're busy. It's kind of nice. The older one could babysit soon. I think around 12 or 13, they're pretty good at that. Especially during the day, it's fine. My 3-year-old is also inconsistent with using the potty for poops, identifying the common time they need to go and leaving diapers off inconsistently. Yeah, you got to be on top of it. You got to know when they're doing what, and yeah. Okay, I'll tell you why it's happening. Mackenzie, 3-year-old boy acting rude at dinner table to get attention when guests are over. Putting foot on table when he wouldn't dare if a guest wasn't over. Not sure. You know why he's doing that? Because you're a different parent when guests are over. There's no way that would happen if you were consistent. Like he only does that because he knows that you're too embarrassed to do anything about it. He knows he can get away with it. So be consistent 100%. My kids knew 100% of the time exactly how I'd react to everything. I was the same mom no matter where we were, and they knew it. So yeah, it's inconsistency on your part. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense otherwise. Can you talk about potty training some more? It's a whole process. That's why I have a mini toddler course on potty training. It's a whole process. If I miss something, you know what I mean? Like I don't want to have to read the whole course out because it's a course. So yeah, it's a whole process. How you set up for it, what age, blah, blah, blah. My 3-year-old thinks that potty training is having accidents. She saw that in a cartoon. I don't know what you mean, having accidents. You mean car accidents or accidents in your pants? I guess you're a ghostwriter for Dr. Seuss. No one would ever hire me to be a ghostwriter, I'll tell you that much. I hate writing. A lot of people ask me if I've written a book, and I hate writing. Maybe one day I'll get a ghostwriter one day, but don't approach me. I know lots of people already have. I'm not ready yet. One day I will. Youngest age you should ignore tantrums, about 16 months, about around 16 months. Before that, you are using more, you're still ignoring it, but this is what I would do. If you've got a 1-year-old who's having a tantrum, this would be me. I would make sure if they were head bangers, banging their head on something, you restrain them. If they're getting violent, if they're going to hurt themselves, hurt someone else, or damage property, you physically restrain them. I just pick them up, put them on my hip, facing away from me, put my hand on the back of their head so they couldn't headbutt, and I just walk. I wouldn't talk to them. I wouldn't go like that. I'd walk around as if I don't even know they're there. So I'm still ignoring them. I'm just physically restraining them. But if they're not doing that, I would go over, I would completely ignore the tantrum. No looking at them or talking to them, you completely ignore it. But I would take their favorite book and I would go sit on the floor, probably on the floor, and I would sit down and I would start reading their favorite book out loud to myself. Next thing you know, they're crawling up in your lap and you're reading together. It's not bribery. It's not rewarding the tantrum. It's diversion. But that's when they're little, when they're under 16 months old. When about 16 months old, I wouldn't be reading that book. I'd let them process it because you want them to start learning how to process a tantrum all by themselves. You cannot go into someone else's brain and help them self-regulate. It doesn't work that way. Their brain has to develop that process, that cycle, that they go into a tantrum, they have a tantrum, and they pull themselves out of it. If you interrupt that cycle, it just goes on forever. If you ignore that tantrum, you're allowing their brain to build that connection, how to get themselves out of it. By ignoring a tantrum, you ignore the crazy and you reward the calm. As soon as the tantrum's over, oh, you all done? You want to read a book? Or are you all done? You want to go to the park? Don't even mention the tantrum. Why would you? Why would you ever talk about a tantrum? It makes no sense at all to me. None. I know it's trendy. I know it's popular. These mini therapy sessions, it's just garbage. That was invented for the moms, feeding the mom's needs. Has nothing to do with the toddler. How do I get my 6-year-old boy to stop screaming and hitting? Ooh, that's a big one. That means that he does not have a leader. He doesn't respect you at all. Now, his behavior is 100% a direct result of your parenting. Work on your leadership skills. That would never happen. It just doesn't. When you're a leader, that kind of stuff, it just doesn't happen. So check out my bootcamp course. That's up in the link above, and it teaches you how to be a leader in 5 ways. But yeah, their behavior from the age of about 3 to 12, their behavior is a direct result of your parenting, 100%. Before that, they're just forming, so toddlers do crazy stuff anyway. Teenagers are a little bit more influenced by the outside world, but they still aren't going to do the big stuff wrong because of you. Okay. How often to pay for bank? Okay, this banking system is every Saturday. And it's a really good way to get your teenagers to come and talk to you too about that. And all sorts of stuff comes up. So here, now your balance is this. Oh, well, what do you think? What if I go in the bank? You just start talking about money, and it's sort of educating them on money. Also, it's another leadership skill. They're always going to come around. And my rule was, if you don't come over here with me, it doesn't get written in. Like, they have to be present. So if they chose not to come over, they wouldn't get allowance that week. It was no big deal. Plus, you don't pay for chores. This is just something they deserve to learn to manage money. That's the way I view it. Chores are completely separate. You live here, you contribute. There's no way I would pay for chores. Not directly anyway. I guess this could be construed as that, but you don't link them to chores. Oh, you didn't do any chores this week, so you don't get any allowance. You don't do that. You still give them allowance. Anyway, should I tell you a funny story right now? Never mind. I've told it so many times on TikTok. Sometimes I've told the same stories so many times, I can't even hear myself when I'm saying them anymore. Because I'm just new on Instagram, so I'm doing lives here now too. But I've been doing lives on TikTok for, almost 2 years now, probably. Every single day, and I say the same story time after time. I have to try and change a few words so I stay awake while I'm telling the story. It's very hard to hear yourself when you've said the same thing so many times over. Okay, what do you do with a 2.5-year-old that refuses to pick up after playing and never wants to play alone, doesn't it? Okay, so a very in charge 2-year-old. Okay, so if they don't want to pick up toys, I would say we're going to have lunch as soon as we put the toys away. Remember, I do a toy rotation system. There's only 5 toys of it anyway. So we're going to do this as soon as, and then you help them. So it's like they learn the as soon as method. That's why I never told my kids what to do. They understood you got to do what you need to do before you can do what you want to do. They just knew that from a really little age. So I'd say, okay, we're going to go. I remember once my daughter was holding this little doll. She was about 2. And so I said, okay, we're going to be going out. And she knew the rule. We're going to pack up. I was very fussy, so I like everything put away. But there's like, she only had, like, I think, one toy out. It was her doll. And she was 2 years old. And I kept saying, oh, you're going to be such a good mommy. Look how gentle you are with your baby. So I said, okay, we're going to go to the park now. So she goes running to go out. And she knew she had to put that baby in her room. As she passes by her room, she was so gentle with this baby, loving it and everything. As she's running down the hall, going towards the front door so we can go out, she grabs her doll by the hair, chucks it in her room, and keeps running. Yeah, she'll be a wonderful mommy one day. But she knew she had to clean up. We're not going to the park until she's put stuff away, right? That was hilarious. So yeah. And also, what's your expectations with your toddlers? I've talked to so many families and have said they just won't clean up their room. And I say, can you take your computer right now, because all my coaching's done on Zoom, take your computer right now, go in their room and show it to me. It's usually chaos. And I say that's an unrealistic expectation. I think it's unfair, especially with little children. You go and you do the big cleanup, get rid of all the crap that doesn't mean anything, make it easy for them. My kids, their rules from the age of about 3 years old, their chores were make your bed, put your laundry away, and put your toys away when asked to do so. And, or when, you want to do something else. And so they just knew. But it took them under 2 minutes because I did laundry every single day, and I had like an empty hanger, an empty space where everything was all folded up and rolled. So they knew where everything went. And their bed was just a duvet thrown up. Like, they didn't have to do it neat. I went in afterwards and did it my way. But anyway, and then they put their toys away. So make it doable. Set them up for success. Don't expect them to do all the decluttering, and there's too much crap everywhere. So yeah, you got to you got to make it easy for them. Organize their room, declutter it, minimalize it, so that's easy for them to take care of. Do you believe in spanking? No. It's because it's not necessary. I teach everything else you do. Can you go into depth about regression? You mean potty training regression or other regression? I need to know a specific. This regression can be a million different things. Okay. 4-year-old is hitting and screaming no to everything. Any advice? Yeah, check out my behavior board. That's free in the link above in my bio. It's called Behavior Board. Sign up for that, and it's free. And then it will say the rule is no hitting. Now, if you're a yeller, all my clients yell. So I always say, okay, your rule on that behavior board, because you're on there too. Parents have to be on there. That's what makes this work. You have to be accountable. You give respect to get it. That's what I call myself a leader when it comes to parenting. I teach calm leadership. So anyway, you have to be on that behavior board. So if you yell, you put no yelling, and then there's a consequence. If you yell, you'll see when you go on the behavior board. And if the kids hit, you always put no hitting on as their rule, and then have a consequence for that every time they hit. When you are, I call it calm leadership, but that's only when you're disciplining. The rest of the time, you're fun, you're best friends, you're goofy, you're giggling all the time. When you get this leadership cemented, you can just relax and have fun with your kids like I did right through the teen years. It just works. It just does. All children need, crave, and want a leader. It's just a natural instinct. If you're not a leader for your children, they're going to be very vulnerable out there in the world. They're going to be susceptible to peer pressure, bullying, the drug dealer on the corner, the internet, the Kardashians. They're going to be very vulnerable out there in the world. But when they've got a leader, they're not vulnerable at all. They come to you for everything, right through the teen years. It's just the way it is. They trust you. You're a safe place to land. They'll tell you everything. Everything. You might not always want to hear it through the teen years, but they'll tell you anyway, because they don't know how not to talk to you. My son, when he was 15, and he said to me, I could never rebel because you were too reasonable and easy to talk to. And he was upset when he said that. He wanted to rebel. And I said, fine, go clean your room. And he never did. So I was too reasonable and easy to talk to. That's why he could never rebel. Interesting. I didn't see that one coming. I thought that was interesting. And he said it like it was an awful thing. I could never even rebel. Like I guess he wanted to get into trouble, but he never did. I thought that was funny. Also, one of his classmates once asked him in high school, he said, would you ever break the law? And my son said, are you kidding me? I'd be terrified my mom would get to me before the police could. Darn right. Plus, I never even did anything. He says, why was I so afraid of you? You never did anything. And it was just, that's respect. It was just, he would have been humiliated to disappoint his mother, because that's what leadership's all about, and vice versa. I wouldn't want to disappoint my kids either. I was very accountable. If I messed up, boy, they'd look at each other like this, because they thought they're going to get something out of me, because I make amends. If I mess up, I make amends, just like I expect them to do. If I mess up, there's a consequence. Okay. I know what this is. Well, I'm pretty sure what it is. Advice for highly emotional 4.5-year-old, not necessarily having full-on tantrums, but just a lot of drama and big feelings all day long. Okay, that's that lack of. Okay, when you're a leader, their emotions calm right down. It makes them feel safe. It calms them down. That's why I talk about calm leadership. When you're a leader for your children, their emotions, they just feel safe. They just feel because they naturally, instinctively need a leader. They need it. Without that, that's what happens. Their emotions are all over the place. They don't feel safe. Tell you a cute story. It was in grade 2. I was helping out in the class, and there was me and all the other moms. And I always talk tough, like, I hate kids. I'm just in here. I like to bully kids. So I was always joking around like that with the moms. So anyway, and they said, oh, well, none of the kids are going to want you to be in the group because the school had asked for us moms to come in. We were going to split up into groups. I was there all the time helping out with the difficult kids, right? So all the kids knew me. So anyway, the moms, I was always laughing with the moms how much I hate kids. Mine were just an accident. It's terrible because it got a laugh, and I was Canadian in Australia, so it's kind of on stage there. I always think I'm hilarious. Anyway, they were laughing. So they were egging me on. Anyway, so in the classroom, all the kids put their hand up. They all wanted to be in my group. And the moms were kind of confused. And then when we all split into groups, my kids were having a blast and they were all good as gold. All the other groups were chaotic. They weren't listening to the moms. It was just, and the moms kept looking over at me like, what is she doing? But I know how to be a leader. I know how to get respect. Also, I know how to make kids, I know how to organize them, make them like themselves too when they're with me. So they'd be embarrassed to insult a leader. They would be embarrassed to disrespect a leader. Anyway, here's the funny part. When the fire alarm went off, it was not scheduled, so it scared the kids. They were only in grade 2. It scared them. And they all ran, not to their moms, not to the teacher. They all ran to me. Why would they run to me? They didn't like me more than the teacher, or they certainly didn't love me. They loved their moms. Why did they all run to me? Because I'm a leader. That's how much it makes them feel safe. It regulates their emotions. They tend to have fewer outbursts, fewer, whatever, ups and downs. It calms them down. Okay, does that make sense? That's why they ran to me, because I was a leader. I made them feel safe. Favorite shows for kids 2 to 4. I haven't got a clue. I've got grandkids on the way, but I don't have a clue what's out there. Anything that I don't really want to say because I don't want to miss out on something that's right. But generally, I was not huge on cartoons with my kids, and I like shows that were creative. There were 2 shows I loved for my kids. One was Play School. It was in Australia in Channel 2, which is the government channel, and it came on every single morning, and it was called Play School, and it was all educational. It was real people showing artwork, talking about different things, that being bullied, and it was really educational. The kids loved it. It was 30 minutes. There was another show called Art Attack, and that was one, it's probably still running somewhere, but it was the original guy who did it. It was just fantastic. I still sometimes watch it on YouTube. It's so relaxing. He just does art out of this crazy stuff, and it's cute music. So it was more, I tended to like, the littler they were, the less likely I was to like them watching cartoons. I don't know why, it just was. So yeah, anything that's more on the educational front. I don't have a big opinion on that though, because I don't know all the shows that are out there. Oh, I can't talk about bedtime. I don't know your schedule. So people always ask me this, what time should they go to bed? I would say 7, no, for 3 and 4-year-olds, probably 7, maybe 7:30 for 5-year-olds, but I don't know your schedule. I don't know what time they're up, what time you have to get them up for school. I think all kids need about 10 hours a night or something, so you just do the math. I don't, and they're all different. My kids never nap. They stopped napping at 12 months old, and they just didn't need a lot of sleep. So they didn't go to bed super early or anything. They just slept through, and they were up early too. So they just didn't need a lot of sleep. So it's like asking how much sleep do adults need. It's such a broad range. Is it okay if a 2-year-old does pretend play? Yeah, that's imagination. That's fantasy. That's dreaming. That's wonderful. That's what kids are so good at. Yeah, I love that stuff. I did a lot of that with kids. That was what I used to have this. Yeah, you can rotate books too. Yeah, we didn't have a lot of books, so I kept them all. And my kids weren't inclined to pull them off the shelf and mess them up. So anyway, I used to use a hand puppet a lot of the time with my kids. And so I'd get a puppet and they'd talk to this puppet. I love that. I love that sort of stuff. Oh, I did some crazy stuff. Anyway. Oh, what if okay, 2-year-old doesn't want to do independent play. You just have to get them started, like revving up an engine. So I used to do this with my kids. My daughter was Velcro to me. My son was very good at independent play. They're just different personalities. So I would get her started. I'd say, okay, I'm going to make I'm going to make something. So I made everything from scratch in our house. It was real health food now. So if I was making pizza, I gave her some dough. So she'd sit and roll it all out and everything. So I included her in what I was doing, but she wasn't under my feet, right? So she was at the kitchen table. Or else I'd say, okay, so we're going to set up your blocks and here we go. And then I'd say, uh-oh, mommy has to go and start dinner now. So then I'd walk away and let her play. And then I'd keep talking to her while she was doing it. They just learn. Some of them are just more Velcro than others. Oh, is there an age when diapers should no longer be used, both daytime and nighttime? No, there's not a specific age. My potty training course, it's called, I always forget the name of it. Why do I do that? Toddler potty party from 1 to 3 years old. I suggest around 2.5 to potty train them. Some are ready at 2, some are ready at 2 3/4. You know, the younger you potty train them, the more likely they are to have night diapers. And I didn't want any of that. I just wanted full out, get rid of everything in one day. And I trained them both over a weekend. Yeah, people don't ask this a lot. It's interesting. Can you go into corrective actions a bit more for toddlers, 1.5 years old? I say no and remove her from the area, but I get a sense she feeds off the no and wants to do it more. Okay, so I always talk about toddlers that's under the age of 3. It's not about words, it's about consistent corrective actions because they learn through repetition. Let's say they're doing something that I don't like. So they're hitting a table with something I don't like. I just say no and I take that item. I say no, I take it like that and I put it away where they can't touch it, but they can still see it. And the important thing is let them have a fit if they're going to have one. If you're trying to avoid a scene or trying to redirect them to not have a scene, yeah, I would never do that. Because what you're doing is if they feel themselves going into a tantrum and you interrupt that, you're not regulating them. You're actually you're giving into them sort of. Like, I don't want you to have a tantrum, so I'm going to do a dance for you. When they're like 16 months and over around there, that's when this really starts, is when you want to ignore that stuff. But yeah, you got to be very clear. No, and you put it away. And then you just ignore them. You just go about your business, doing whatever you're doing. And let them process that. It's the lack of allowing children to process it, which I find a real problem with parents, is they say, I did that, and then I quickly turned on the TV. So they haven't learned anything. They've learned nothing. It's got to kind of hurt. They've got to kind of, not physically, but they've got to kind of understand that when you say no, that it's going to be a negative reaction to that. So it's got to kind of hurt them, or at least make them go like this. Oh. See, my kids would have gone, oh, she knows what she's doing. Like they just learned really young, like that mom knows what she's doing. When their dad said no, it meant nothing because he was more likely to go, okay, here you go. He was the pleaser, I was the leader. There's usually just one leader in the family, and that's okay. As I got older, he didn't like the fact that they pushed him around. He loved the way they were when they were with me. Plus, they're happier when they've got a leader around. They just are. You guide them you bring out the best in them, and they're proud of themselves. Anyways, it was funny when they were about 3. My husband said, when our oldest was about 3, he says, when I take him out, he really pushes me around when you're not around, right? And I said, well, here's what you do. Just say, do you want me to tell mom? Work like a charm. Do you want me to tell mom? No, never mind. I remember my mom was the leader and my dad was the pleaser. And if I was trying to get something out of dad, I'd be whispering without mom hearing. And he'd say, I'll tell you what, let's ask mom. And I go, never mind. So it's not, you don't have to both be leaders, but you have to defer to the leader. You have to use them as leverage. You have to both be on the same page. I didn't want my husband disciplining the kids. I didn't want him messing them up. I knew what I was doing. I had tons of experience with kids. I didn't want to mess them up, and he didn't want to mess them up. He knew that was my strength, right? We used to call him the treat master. He used to bring stuffed treats home, like toys and that. He'd go traveling, like with business, and he'd bring stuff home. That was his role. He was the treat master, right? But yeah, I was the leader for sure. I was the one they told everything to. Oh, you're asking about your nephew. I don't tell people how to parent other people's kids. I just don't. What if I told you something and the parent didn't like it? Also, I do have a tantrum busting course if you're interested, if your brother or sister is interested in that. teaches you how to address tantrums. It's a humble request to speak little slow. You want me to talk slower? I'm used to TikTok. They want me to talk fast. Does Instagram want me to talk slower? I'm new on Instagram. Should I slow down? I can slow down. The reason why I talk so fast too is I try to get to all the questions. If I don't talk fast, I'm not going to get to them all. Okay. Play School Channel 2. Is that still in Australia? Is it still running? Play School? That was 30 years ago. Such a good show. The girl that they had doing it at the time, I think her name was Trisha. She's in England now. She does something. She's still on TV. She's in England now. Her name was Trish. She was fantastic. She's very political now. I saw her talking about something, and I thought, that's not the girl I remember. She's very political. I don't necessarily agree with what she says, but it's quite funny. Best potty training method? I don't know. I only know what I teach and what I did with my kids. So if you want to check that out, I have a potty training course. It's called Toddler Potty Party. If you're interested, it's in my link above. So am I talking too fast? Do you want me to slow down? I got used to talking fast because I do lives every day on TikTok, and I just try and get through as many questions as I can. And I never can get to all the questions. Okay. Sorry, I just flew through a whole bunch of questions, just trying to see if you were agreeing with me. Do I talk too fast? Anyway, someone said, do any of your recommendations change, or are they different for children with autism or ADHD? Those are two very different things. ADHD, that's where I learned all this. I didn't learn any of this with my own kids. They were easy. I got respect when they were little, sailed right through the teen years. I learned all this with all the kids I worked with over 52 years. They all seemed to be, I called them alphabet kids. They're ADHD, ODD, WXYZ. They were all challenging. No one once ever said to me, here's an easy one, Lisa. They all went, good luck with this one. I always got the really challenging kids, teenagers. That was what I did. I was good at behavioral management. I was good at bonding with kids and bringing out the best in them. That was my gift. I was really good at it. So, but yeah, they all had, but the autism's different. I only discuss autism in one-on-one coaching. If you're interested, that's a specialty. It's just a whole different thing. So you'd have to check out the link if you want to hire me. I don't discuss autism on social media. I just don't. Because I have to get to know what has worked in the past. What are you doing now? Who else are you working with? What kind of programs are they in? Where are they on the spectrum? You know, that sort of stuff. When did you first find out they were autistic? Are they really autistic? Do they have Asperger's or Asperger's, whatever you call it, depending on where you live? Okay. Terrible too. I feel like a horrible mother. You help a lot. Excellent. Excellent. Do you know what? You're not the only one struggling. Most parents are. They keep it to themselves, though. In Australia, I was lucky my kids are born there. You know why? Because all of us moms would compete about who was the worst mom. Oh, you wouldn't believe the stupid thing I did today. I'm surprised my kids are still alive. Like we're very into self-deprecating humor. I find in North America it's more competitive bragging-wise, whereas we used to compete to be the worst mother. Oh, you won't believe what my stupid kids did today. They were all laughing about it. There was none of that competitiveness, or none of my friends were like that. So we seem to be more laughing about how awful we were and how awful our kids were. Yeah, they don't brag. Australians don't brag. I do brag sometimes. I used to be a bragger, and the joke is with me, every time I brag, I end up with egg on my face. No matter what I say, if I'm bragging about something, I'll end up looking like a fool every single time. I'll tell you a funny story. My daughter was in dance for years and years. Anyway, I was first joined this dance school, and the dance teacher was right there with the kids dancing, and we were still sort of in the same room on chairs because they were little. We were still in the same room. They weren't off in a different room or anything. So I'm talking to these other moms. Now, I'm a sewer. And I was talking to these other moms. How stupid was I? This is when bragging backfires. So I'm talking away about sewing because I made all of our clothes, all of our swimsuits, everything. I used to sell aerobics wear and everything. I used to make it. So anyway, I'm talking, and I said out loud, and then I said, yeah, I guess you could, I guess I'm practically a seamstress. Bragging, I'm practically a seamstress. Well, the dance school owner was teaching. She went like this. Now, anyone who's had a kid in dance knows why she did that. Why do you think she did that? How many hundreds of costumes do you think I made over the next 8 years that my daughter danced? How stupid was I? Me and my big mouth. Well, you know, we're always looking for volunteer seamstresses to help us with costumes. How could I say no? Because I'm a seamstress. Anyway, that was, see, bragging. Why do I do it? Oh, I don't teach teaching. I couldn't do it. That's why a huge portion of my clients are teachers, principals, child psychologists. I could never do their jobs, and they struggle with parenting. They're different. One is an institution, one is personal. It's home. They're very different roles. A lot of it doesn't transfer over. That's why a lot of teachers struggle. They say, how come I can handle 30 kids, but I can't handle one at home? I say, because it's different. It's personal. Parenting is different. That relationship, parent-child relationship, is not like a teacher-child relationship. A lot of stuff does transfer over, but a lot doesn't. Autism, I only discuss that in one-on-one coaching. Yeah. I talk fast too. It's fine with me. Great. I'm just trying to get through as many questions as I can. Okay, you're talking at a great speed. A lot of people, I find more on TikTok. The English is their second language, so I understand it's probably difficult to understand a lot of what I'm saying. But yeah, sorry about that. I'm just trying to get through as many questions as I can. I have to take a sip of water. My mouth's getting dry. I've had a sore throat today. I keep taking COVID tests. It's negative. Okay, how do you keep your cool? Sometimes I get so impatient and lose my temper. I want to be more, okay. That's a question I get every single day, many times a day. And how do I maintain calm when the kids are going crazy? The thing is, it's kind of like losing weight. You go to Weight Watchers and you say, yeah, I know I want to lose 50 pounds, but how do I get into my size 2 pants today? You got to do the work first before the calm comes, right? You got to do some work. You'll start to see results, then the calm will come. You got to put in the work first. But also, if you're a yeller, most parents are yellers. Almost all clients that hire me yell. That's why we put no yelling on the behavior board for the parents. So put no yelling. So when you do yell, then there's a consequence. You have to play hide and seek for 10 minutes or something. If they're little kids, you yell, you have to play hide and seek for 10 minutes. Stuff like that. You're always trying to bond with your kids. I teach leadership, and everyone asks me about discipline, but discipline is this much of parenting. Parenting is about bonding, connecting with, being a safe place to land so that your teenagers tell you everything. That's where you're going. I know I specialize in teenagers. I'm just investing in your kids' teen years. I know how to get you there. Never take advice from someone who hasn't finished the job with their own kids. How on earth do they know what they're teaching now is going to work? If they only have young children, how can they possibly teach parenting? It's all about the teen years. You got to invest in those years. I know how to get you there. That's everything I teach is to get you there, because those are the most difficult ones. Anyway, also never take advice from someone who hasn't worked with hundreds of kids. If all they have is little kids of their own and it's all going great, they might just have super easy little kids. Plus, how do they know if what they're doing today is working and then it's going to backfire down the road? I get a lot of business because of that, because parents are following advice by people who don't have experience with kids, and then what we're teaching them just doesn't work, and then I have to correct all that stuff. Yeah, it's quite frustrating. It's very good for my business, but I'd rather it not be. I'd rather get less clients and have more happy parents out there, rather than this misadvice that's being taught. Be very careful who you take advice from. Make sure they finish the job with their own kids so they know what it's like to live with teenagers and invest in all those teen years. And because it's personal. There's no class can teach you how to live with teenagers. It's different. So they have to have finished the job with their own kids, and they have to work with hundreds of other kids. I didn't learn much with my own kids. I got respect when they were tiny, sailed right through the teen years. I learned all this from mentoring troubled teens, working in hospitals with disabled children, working with children with all sorts of problems who were abused, awful stuff. I've done all that stuff. So anyway, and I'm sure there's lots of other people out there who have. Also, if you're going to take parenting advice, just follow me, just follow someone else you like. Just pick a path and go with it. If you were to pick and choose what you like from different people, if you were to throw timeout into my method, it would tank. I hate timeout. I think it's mean. I think it's humiliating. I would never do it to a child. So if you were to throw timeout into my method, which is leadership, it's giving respect to get it. I think timeout's very disrespectful. It wouldn't work. Then you go, well, that Lisa doesn't know what she's talking about. I followed everything she said, and I threw timeout in there. See it? It's like dieting. You don't pick and choose what you want from different diets and expect to get results. You got to pick a path and go with it. It's like that with a lot of stuff in life. I've learned that the hard way with business. I pick and choose what I like from everybody, but they all have different styles. And if you pick and choose different pieces of advice, they contradict each other, and it just doesn't make any sense. You got to follow someone who makes sense to you. If I don't make any sense to you, just bail right now and find someone who does. And if I do make sense, just watch me for 3 weeks, see how you feel. Give it 3 weeks. And then if it's not working or you hate what I'm saying, move on to someone else, because this is your children you're talking about. You want to get the best results from your parenting and your children. You want to enjoy your family. So make sure that you find someone that resonates with you. Yeah. My toddler, I don't know how old she is. That's the problem. My toddler wants for me to carry her around and I'm pregnant. Well, I need to know her age. Is she 1? Is she almost 3? You know, it makes a difference. Mm. Well, wait a minute here. This is from Vic. You're going to hate what I say. My 1.5-year-old never wants to eat. I sit him in a high chair and spoon feed him, but he'll keep the food in his mouth or throw it on the floor. What advice to improve rating, please? To improve rating, please. I don't understand that. I'm not going to answer that because I don't know what you mean by that. Okay, how do you keep your toddler in their own bed? I made it a habit of her sleeping in my bed. Need to stop. Okay, I have a whole my bedtime battles course just came out 2 weeks ago. Check it out. It's one of my mini toddler courses. It goes through it step by step. There's 2 parts to bedtime. One is the bedtime routine to get them in bed. The second part is how to keep them in bed. There has to be 2 parts because not everyone has problems with both. Some people can get them in bed but can't keep them there, and vice versa. So check out the it's called Bedtime Battles, 2 to 8 years old. Okay, 2 to 8 years old. Did you meditate with your kids or do yoga? How has it impacted your bond? No, I didn't do any of that with my kids. We played a lot. We did a lot of crazy stuff. I was always talking to and connecting with my kids constantly. And they told me everything. So yeah, we're always chatting, just talking, laughing about everything. Because I got all that discipline out of the way when they were tiny. So they were self-disciplining. I never really had to tell them what to do. So yeah, we just had a lot of laughing, a lot of laughter, tons. I remember the other school moms used to say, I had a little blue RAV4 when they first came out. Remember the RAV4s used to be so cute. Now they're just like every other SUV. Anyway, they look like little bumper cars. I just love them. So anyway, all the other moms at school used to say, this is all they saw with me and my kids every time they'd see us in the car was this, because we'd all be laughing all the time. So laughter is sort of a form of meditation. And I think it is anyway. It's feel good. Okay, this is interesting. In 2023, would you rather raise your kids in Australia or Canada if you had a choice? We moved from Australia to Canada, and I mull over this every single day. I think both countries are wonderful. My kids were born and raised in Australia predominantly. My mother got ill, so we moved back to Canada. And she died in my arms. It was beautiful. But anyway, I have no regrets about moving back. But yeah, they were kind of teenagers when we moved back, and it was a big shock. Big difference. The one thing I noticed that I hated in Canada and North America, and I understand why it wouldn't work here, was the parent involvement is not here. Like pretty much every class, I was sitting at the back of the class supporting teachers, just volunteering. I was just there to handle the difficult kids. They'd put me up the back to work with the difficult, challenging kids. They don't do that here. The reason is the parents would interfere. Here in North America, they'd be speaking up, telling the teacher what to do. Whereas over there, we're just obedient little soldiers for those teachers. We are just obeying them because that is their classroom. And did they sometimes do things that I didn't like? Yeah. Would I say anything? No freaking way. What a difficult job. There's no way. I could never be a teacher. So yeah, that's the one thing that I didn't like about Canada when I moved back. And I know North America, they do not encourage or allow that really heavy parent involvement in the classrooms. And that was wonderful in Australia. I just loved it. Loved it. I really missed that when I moved back. Oh, I'm getting teary. I really missed that. You know what? It wasn't just for my kids. I got to sit and chat and get to know all these hundreds of kids that I worked with over the years. And I missed it. I really did. Yeah, anyway. Both countries are beautiful. I feel just as at home in Australia as Canada. They both got pluses and minuses, but they're both wonderful countries. Like, well, how lucky I've got dual citizenship between Australia and Canada. Like, how lucky. Gorgeous countries, beautiful countries. Sorry, I'm just flipping through because I missed a whole bunch. A whole bunch came in, and I'm new on Instagram here with the lives. In TikTok, they scroll by themselves, so it does a job for me. I have to do it all by myself in here. Okay, good. Your ignoring tantrum with staying totally calm has helped so much. Thank you. Right after that, we read a book and reconnected. Perfect. 99% of parenting is about bonding and connecting with your kids. I specialize in teenage crisis. That's how I started my business, and also abused children. So that was my how I started my business. And the parents were always shocked by what I taught them, because it wasn't about dealing with what kids were doing wrong. It was about connecting with them more than anything else. It's about connecting with them, making them feel safe, making them feel good about themselves. My goal is always to bring out the best in children, to make them like themselves, not to be obedient little soldiers, but to like themselves, have pride in themselves. If you don't give your kids any responsibility, what do they have to be proud of? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. This pleaser parent style that's so trendy right now, kids have no pride. They got nothing's expected of them. They even get participation awards for doing squat. I've even heard that kids get participation awards for not even turning up to a game. I mean, it's just ludicrous. They don't have to earn anything anymore. It's pathetic. Anyways, it drives me nuts. That's what I'm up against. It drives me nuts. I don't understand it. I saw it coming 30 years ago. I said, you're going to raise self-entitled snowflakes with mental health issues, and the drug problem's going to skyrocket. Here we are. It's so predictable. I saw it 30 years ago. If you don't give your children anything to be proud of and any responsibility, you're messing them up. Yeah. Okay. This one's kind of tricky for me because I don't really know what's going on, but I'll read it out anyway because I know a lot of people deal with this. Sorry for the typo. Oh, okay. I don't need to read that. Anyway, how do I improve my 1.5-year-old's eating? He just keeps the food in his mouth and throws it on the floor, never eats. He never eats. He must eat something. Like sometimes I can't really talk about this because I'm not a nutritionist, but I'll tell you as a mother what I used to do with my kids. My son really, he ate to live. He didn't live to eat. I live to eat. I love eating. My daughter's the same. But yeah, food just didn't mean that much to him. So we were chatting while he was eating. I always chatted with him. I was always talking at my kids. We were always chatting. And he never shut up either. We just talked all the time. So he didn't know he was eating. He was just eating while we were talking. And I never made the food the focus. Never. I made that, remember the horsey? And I'd have puppets. I'd do anything to get him to eat. So yeah, I distracted him. But I never made food the focus. If you do that, they kind of can get a little bit stubborn. He didn't even know he was eating half the time, but he was. And often they need a lot less than we often think they do. Toddlers, they go through growth spurts and they will eat more sometimes. And then other times they don't tend to eat as much as a lot of parents think they should. I think any pediatrician will say that. They do tend to. People seem to think, well, they hardly eat anything for dinner. Toddlers are usually grazers. That's why newborn babies, they don't eat like twice a day or 3 times a day. They eat every couple hours. And then they can kind of, change that throughout the years. She'll throw herself on the floor and cry. Should I sit with her? Why? No. No way. I wouldn't. I completely ignore the crazy and I reward the calm. As soon as she's calmed down, I'd say, oh, you want to go to the park? Want to read a book? I never discuss a tantrum. I wouldn't sit with them. No. If they were banging their head on the floor, I would pick them up or prevent that. I don't let them get injured or hurt someone else or damage property. But you still don't talk to them or look at them. Yeah, you said health was important. I don't like to go on about this a lot because I was pretty radical, and I don't think everyone needs to be. You said health was important to you as a mom. Did you make most meals with them and eat all meals together? Yes. And sometimes I always ate with them. And I made everything from scratch. And we had no junk food in the house. So if they didn't eat their vegetables, there was no ice cream and potato chips waiting for them. And I made all the cookies and cakes, but they were very different from the stuff that you'd buy. I didn't use much sugar. It was mostly a lot of wheat germ. And, I pureed my son. The very first time he ever saw a real pizza, one that wasn't handmade, he thought it was weird because the sauce was red. My pizzas, the sauce were brown because I pureed spinach into the sauce. So yeah, I was I hate cooking, but I was a real health. I'm more radical now than ever. I'm in my 60s. I'm a gluten-free health food vegan. So yeah, no one can cook for me. I bring my food everywhere. So, yeah. But I wasn't that radical when the kids were little. But yeah, you don't have to be that radical. But they didn't know any different. They just thought, and every time they'd go out to a birthday party, I'd say, have at it, eat whatever you want, right? They always came home with a stomach ache because their system, that says a lot. Their systems weren't used to that. And it just says, well, that's not healthy for them. If it gives you a stomach ache, is that healthy? So yeah, I didn't have any of that stuff in the house. But, I was radical. I'm not saying anyone else should be that way. That's why I don't want people to think I'm judging them, like you. You do what you're comfortable doing. It was funny, someone asked me the messages. By the way, I do answer messages, but it takes me hours to get through them. And I'm doing my best to get through them, but I don't get through them right away usually. But someone put down, they asked me something, and I said, well, that's a personal choice. I don't want to have an opinion on that. So then, because I said I don't teach, I teach through my experience with children, and I'm not experienced with that opinion. It's not really something it's a gray area. Is what I'm saying. So then because I said I can't answer as a parenting coach, and they said, okay, so what's your personal opinion? And I wouldn't give it. And I was talking to my daughter about that earlier, and I said, in coaching, I do give my personal views on things, but I'm very selective with who I tell what to. I decide who I'm going to tell something to and what, so it's different. I can judge whether or not I want to tell them something that I think they could benefit from. If I think it's not going to benefit them, why would I tell them my personal opinion? You're not here soliciting my personal opinion. You're here soliciting my experience, right? But yeah. And it was just funny how they asked that. It was cute. So I never did answer. Kids 7 and 4 call each other mean names when upset. Would you use behavior bird? Oh, yes, I would. No name calling. And every time they do, there's a consequence. So if they call someone a name, they have to do something nice for that other one. They have to give them their favorite toy for the rest of the day or something like that. Or if they're going to take turns with something, the other one gets a longer turn. So if they're going to play PlayStation, for example, together, okay, so because you called him a name, now he gets to play for half an hour, you get to play for 15 minutes, something like that. If you're mean to someone, you make it up to them by being nice to them. Yeah. Someone said, this is about feeding kids. I try to use options and involvement with deciding what to eat and preparing food, giving options and hands-on participation. Can you put this plate on your table? Put it on your table, please. Yeah, it can work. But if you got a stubborn kid who doesn't like eating stuff, it might not. Yeah, it can work though. Yep. Okay. I'd love to hear more about your meals for what you made for your kids. I'm always stuck. Okay, I hate cooking, but I made all my own bread, all my own stuff, all my own cakes and cookies and everything. So, but my kids, there were some rules. They had to have one fruit per day or one type of fruit per day. And they had to have 3 vegetables every dinner time. So, but I knew what they liked and I cooked around it. So it's not like every single day they'd say, tonight I want this and that. I just knew all the foods that they liked and I made that. I cooked within that perimeter. I don't like making kids eat things they don't like. My kids weren't stubborn because we had a good relationship. So they wouldn't just not eat something to be stubborn. They genuinely didn't like it. They'd say, and they were always polite about it. They'd say, no, I don't like it, Mom. And I'd say, fine, you don't have to eat it, but you have to try everything. So I made them try stuff all the time. Even though they just tried it maybe last month, I said, well, taste buds change. I want you to try it again. So they had to try everything, but they never had to eat what they didn't like. But there was no junk food in our house, so it was all healthy stuff anyway. But I made all my own bread. I made a lot of pizzas, like mini pizzas for lunch. I made a lot of cookies for lunch. I made a lot of cake, but it was all super, super healthy, very little sugar or anything in it. So yeah, it was very healthy. But a lot of muffins. They're nice, easy things to pack up. I remember whenever my kids would go somewhere else and they'd eat all this other stuff, they were always so confused by what it tasted so different when they went out. I'd say, I don't know. Why does all the other cakes taste so different from your cake, Mom? I don't know. They started catching on after a while. Oh yeah, I don't let people in on these videos. The only reason I don't, for sure, was about a year ago when I first started. I think I started about a year and a half ago, actually doing everyday lives on TikTok. And someone came in. I let them in, and I just didn't. I was new on it, so you do like a duet. It's a dual video where they can see both. And she started talking about her business. I got a pretty big audience. I got like 500,000 people on there. She wanted my audience, and she started talking about her business. It was so awkward. She introduced herself and then gave a whole spiel, the elevator spiel about her business. And so I said, and I interrupted her because I'm very protective of my audience, right? I built this up on people trusting me to give them parenting advice, not for you to tell your elevator speech on here about your business, not using them to sell stuff. Anyway, I was really shocked by that. I don't know why I was so stupid, right? So anyway, and I just told her, I said, I'm going to have to cut you off because I'm on here to help parents, not to help your business. So I just shut her out. So yeah, I don't let people in here. That was so, and everyone was laughing. It was all these laughs like afterwards, like how stupid was I? Live and learn. Okay. Yeah, what do you think about timeout for toddlers 2 and 3 years old? I'm gonna have to hold myself back, but I hate timeout. I hate it a lot. I think it's humiliating. I think it's mean, disrespectful. Imagine if you made a mistake at work and your boss said, you go stand in a corner, nose to wall. You think about what you did. Then after your 20 minutes is up, we're going to discuss everything you did wrong. Wouldn't that be humiliating? It's the exact same for kids. It's disrespectful. It's humiliating. It's awful. I hate it. Not that I'm opinionated, but yeah, I really hate timeout. I've done millions of videos on that. I hate timeout. Okay, not millions, but I've done probably a dozen videos on timeout. I think I'll do another one. Actually, I haven't done one for a few weeks now, I don't think. There's three things I hate. One of them is timeout. 3 things I hate. Timeout, diversion, and countdown. Those are 3 really common discipline methods that I hate. I'll go into it now. There's 3 of them. The one I hate the least is timeout, because I just explained why. I think it's really mean and humiliating. It doesn't teach them anything except they're bad. Where's the lesson there? They're just bad. You're bad. Bad. That's all you're teaching them. You're rotten. You're rotten. You're rotten. It's horrible. Anyway, and the second one that I hate is diversion. It's when they're doing something bad and you say, here's a candy, here's a chocolate bar, you reward them. Diversion is never done with broccoli. Okay, it's always done with something exciting. So what they've learned is, hey, if I hit my little brother, I'm going to get some chocolate. Right? So you've actually trained them that what they're doing is how to get the good stuff. So diversion is just a reward system. And the one I hate the most is the countdown. Okay, stop hitting your little brother by the time I count to 3 or else you're in trouble. So he pounds harder when they're counting to 3. Finally, at 3, he breaks, right? There's no discipline or no consequence for what he did. He's learned that I just have to pound harder and faster to get 20 more hits in. And then there's no discipline afterwards anyway. So you've just taught him it's okay to pound your little brother in the short term, not the long term. It's a mixed message. It's really bad. Also, the kids pick up on this because you're afraid of them. You're counting down because you're terrified of them. You don't really want to have to discipline. You're praying to God that by the time you get to 3, they'll stop. Well, please look at 2.5, 2 3/4, 3, you know? So it's fear-based. It's a horrible mixed message. Anyway. Actually, I have to get going. Yeah. Oh, gosh, it's been over an hour now. Anyway, I got to get going. Thanks so much for joining me. If you go on the link above, you can download my free behavior board. My mini toddler courses are there. I have 4 of those. And my big course is the boot camp course, teaches you how to get respect in 5 weeks. And then the next level up is coaching, one-on-one with me. It's done on Zoom, usually 1 hour per week. So that's everything I've got to offer in my business. It's all linked above. And thanks so much for joining me. I will be back on Thursday night from a regularly scheduled live on Instagram. I have Tuesday nights regularly scheduled on TikTok, and then I turn up I don't know where every other day. So I'm always doing a live every single day somewhere. So it's always on YouTube. They're all saved on YouTube, all my lives. So I'm doing Instagram and YouTube or TikTok and YouTube. So anyway, check that out. So thanks so much for joining me. Happy parenting. We'll talk again soon. Bye now.